Akame got Killed series finale, Akame got Killed. Now, before I get into the review, I should let you guys know that because I'm doing this in a different format, there's going to be probably at like the 10-minute mark or 12-minute mark, something like that, where the audio is going to cut for like literally half a second because I can't transfer this format in its complete form anymore because a piece on my camera broke. But I always do my 60 frames per second for a series finale review, so I'm sticking to that. There's just going to be like this tiny little clip of, within here. It may or may not happen twice depending on how long I go with this review, but wanted to let you guys know that it's not your computer or anything. It's just I can't do it any other way unless I record the audio completely separately, which was just like a big thing, so I kind of didn't want to do that for this. But I really enjoyed this final episode. It was a really good action episode. All the action is always really cool, and they certainly did it really fun in this one. And we got to see Esdeath and Akame go at it. We got to see Akame use her trump card, and she goes into like this like pseudo demon mode or whatever, which I thought was really cool. And she takes on Esdeath, and Esdeath is using abilities we've never seen her use before, and it's really fun. And one of them that it kind of sucks she never used it before, but after she lost her arm and she was like swinging the blade, she was swinging the rapier and creating like ice waves off the tip of the blade. I was like, why wasn't she doing that the whole series? Because that's freaking sweet. So I wish we got to see that a lot more because I thought that was really awesome. But she was doing all sorts of crazy stuff. She did like the giant kind of field device in the beginning of the episode and took out like everyone and put herself and Akame in like this big circle. And then when she lost her arm, it was really cool, the scene where she spun and tried to hit Akame, and she shot the ice straight out of where her arm should have been, and she just shoots basically like a straight ice spear extending from her body. And I was like, that's very cool. It's just a cool way to do that. And of course, the fact that she chopped her own arm off because she knew she was being cursed, and she just chopped that thing straight off. It was really fun, and they both go at it, at full force. We get to see Esdeath use a lot of abilities we hadn't seen her use before. Like, she created a ton of weapons in this, which I don't think she'd ever done before. I know she did, like the floating spear stuff, ice spears, but she never did, like, in this when Akame got, like, the first strike on her, but she made the ice blade behind her back. We never seen her do stuff like that before. We may have seen it maybe once or something like that, but typically it's like she just makes ice spears that float behind her, and she can kind of just shoot them off, or she just, puts her hands up and they kind of just appear and, shoot out of her hands. So it was very cool. I thought it was really awesome to get to see her do all those types of moves and stuff. And we have her, like, the first thing she did was she made an ice blade, like a little knife, so that she had two weapons at once. But it was really fun. I thought the fight was definitely great. Akame, when she went into like kind of her demon mode, was very awesome, and she was just like flying all over the place, especially towards the end. And it made me think of two different anime. The first thing it made me think of was Bleach. When Ichigo first does his Bankai, it's kind of like that, and he's jumping around. That's the only thing I thought of. But now I'm thinking of Naruto. It's another great example. And when Rock Lee first does like the 8 inner gates, he's moving around at like super speed like that. But it was it only reminded me of Bleach when I watched it because they were actually in an open field just like in Bleach and stuff. So I was like, oh, that's kind of like Bleach, and the way the animation was also very similar to Bleach. So it made me think of that, which is never a bad thing because that is a really awesome part from that anime. But it was cool, and Kame's just hopping around at super speed and trying to get Esdeath, and then she finally gets her, and Esdeath uses like her ultimate ability, and I was like, crap, like how, like I thought she would die, and then Najinda and Leone would be like the only two left, and Najinda would actually have to kill Esdeath off. But she stabs through, and it's like, oh crap, it's an after image, and she can't find her, and her power drained, and Akame just slices her straight down. I was like, that was very awesome because like it was just really cool. It's like she was moving so fast that she hit that moment just before Esdeath used her trump card, and I was like, that was actually very cool because I didn't think it would go that way. Like, oh, an after image, because they didn't show it that way. It was like she just would disappear, and then they explained it's like it was kind of manifest rage or something like that. It was a different emotion, I believe. I also watched this one in Japanese because I'm not at home right now. So I watched this on Hulu again, so I saw like the full opening and ending and stuff. The full opening is awesome. I don't know if I mentioned that before, But I really like that full opening. I think I mentioned I finally got to see it, but I really like the full opening. It's way cooler than the Toonami version. Actually, I think I may have said those exact words before, but it was really good to see it. And with it being the final episode, it's always better to see, you know, the full version anyway, because I wanted, like, the complete experience of whatever they did, because, you know, some stuff, of course, the opening in general, I'm sure they kind of did the same sort of deal, but they actually have the full ending in this episode as well, which most series finales don't do, so that really surprised me. They did the actual, you know, normal full ending, and then we got a nice little extra credit scene, which I'm sure they showed that because they kind of had to, you know, mash it up, and because it's an actual part of the episode, they had to show that. But I thought the extra ending scene was pretty cool too with Akame. She seemed taller, so I'm pretty sure she was a couple years older, because that's just how it looked to me when they showed her walking. So that was pretty cool, and she still has the mark after using her trump card, so that's kind of, you know, on her forever now. But the battle was definitely really cool, and she actually defeats Esdeath, and they're, you know, after just this crazy battle, they like fight in the air when Esdeath makes like all the different ice blocks and stuff, and Akame is just like hopping around all over the place, and she's like breaking through all the ice pieces and all this other stuff. So it was definitely a really fun fight. I did like the way that it ended, because she beat her, and Esdeath decides that she wants to be with Tatsumi. And, you know, I was reading the comments after I watched the episode, and a lot of people thought Tatsumi would probably, like, resurrect, or, you know, wouldn't actually be dead or something like that. But, you know, unfortunately, that is how it played out, and, you know, they both die together. She, you know, freezes them in a block of ice, and then they kind of just shatter. And it was just cool. It was a somber little moment. It's like, you know, that really does suck, but that was cool. Then the scene, you know, after they finally beat Esdeath, we get the minister, or whatever the guy's name was, or position was. I never remember his exact position. It's like either minister or like chancellor or whatever, but the actual bad guy of the series, we have Leone, who catches up with him, and I hated the fact that Leone died during that scene, or at least, you know, she was shot and she was going to die, but I knew that she was the one that did it because I'd seen a picture like a long time ago of the Emperor's face when it's like crushed in, and like Leone's hands were in that shot. So I knew that she was the one that killed him in the series, and once again I was like, I knew he was going to die, so it wasn't a big deal to me that I knew it. Was just who did it was the difference. But it was still a cool scene. Like, it was cool that she did that. And initially I thought she was going to live, because he shot her twice and she didn't like go down. I was like, okay, she'd probably be okay then, because he had like a flintlock pistol, and the bullets didn't even go through her, so it was really like old school, and he was probably, what, 3 feet, the gun, you know, he was on the ground and she was still standing, so the gun was probably only like 3 feet, if that, away from her, and yet the pellets didn't, they still didn't go through her entire body. So I was like, alright, she could probably live from that. She only got shot, you know, 2 times, and then he shot her like 4 or 5 extra times, and I was like, I don't think she's gonna make it out of this. But she still never bled, and, you know, he used his Imperial Arms, which I knew he had to have one, and I thought it was gonna be a fight, but, you know, I guess they made it a bit more realistic. It's like, nope, his Imperial Arms just destroys whatever other Imperial Arms are there. And, you know, and that's one of the things about the show. Of course, they kill off characters, but I think in this regard, that was probably the only death in the series that I didn't really like, because I truly felt like it was kind of out of nowhere. Like, even more so than Lubbock's death, which I mentioned I really hated, because I thought he, you know, I was like, oh crap, he actually won. And it was like a cheap death, because they came out in a different area, and he was like 100 feet up in the air, or like 300 feet in the air. So as much as I hated that, I still felt like she could have, you know, she saw the gun, and she, despite the fact that she didn't have her Imperial Arms, she has skills as a fighter. And I was like, I feel like she should just be able to knock the gun straight out of his hand. But she kind of stood there, and then he shot her. And I felt they were close enough to where she could have, like, jumped at him or something and, like, knocked the gun out of his hand, or, you know, at least tried to turn it on him. But she kind of just stood there and got shot twice. And then she still, you know, she just got up, and, you know, that's when she knocked him down. And I was like, that kind of sucks, because then, you know, he kept shooting her, and she just, you know, she took all the shots. And I was like, that really blows. So, as much as I hated Lubbock's death, because I was like, he actually won that battle, and then it was like, oh, no, he still ends up dying. I felt like this was my least favorite death in the series, because it felt like it honestly felt a bit unnecessary for her death to happen, because it wasn't like, you know, in the middle of a battle or anything like that. It was like he pulled out a gun, and then, you know, she got shot twice. And they made like a crazy, weird automatic version, because obviously it was a flintlock pistol, but it was working like a normal handgun because he just kept shooting, which was actually kind of cool. But I didn't like that death. That was the only one that bothered me, and that was one of the scenes that made me sad when she actually died. The way that they did it, and one of the comments was really great, and they explained like the way she died was exactly like a real cat, because cats, when they're dying, they return home and they kind of check in, and then they kind of just go off on, you know, and die somewhere else. So that was actually pretty cool. That was a nice, very somber scene. It was of course sad, and you know, because when she was standing next to Akame, I was like, oh, I guess everything's fine, because it was after that scene. I was like, oh, I guess she is okay. But then she was like, you know, I'll see you later, and, you know, don't be sad, because it just means I'll get to see everybody soon. And I was like, oh, I guess, you know, that does mean that she is dying. But it was a sad scene, and she returned home. The other two scenes that really got to me were the scene with, I wish I can remember the guy's name, but the pyro guy with his wife and daughter. That made me really sad. And then I think the very first one that made me sad, I believe this was before they showed Leone die, was the little parade, and they had like those three little kids that were like Susanoo, mine, and the last kid was kind of like a mix between Leone and Lubbock to me, a little bit, but it was more Leone for sure because of the hair. But I really liked that one. I was like, that was actually a good scene. The one that made me saddest was definitely seeing the guy's wife and daughter, though, because it was like, I don't know, because I mentioned that before. It was like, man, that was the one thing, because he actually had a family. It wasn't just like, you know, he's just one of the guys that went to live. Like Wave, where I just felt Wave was on the wrong side. This guy, like, actually had, you know, a family. So it was like, that really made me sad to see that, because it's like this little girl who won't have a dad. But it was definitely a good episode. I really enjoyed it. You know, whole series, just lots of sad moments. It was definitely a great series. I think I will probably eventually I'll end up reading the manga, because I think I mentioned in like the very first episode, I did read the manga for this. I read like the first volume of the manga before the anime came out, and when it came out, I was like, this seems really familiar, and it was because in the Japanese version it's Kiru instead of just flat out Kill, so the titles were technically different, and I'm like, I kind of remember it. It sounds super familiar, but I didn't. That was before I'd seen any pictures or anything, and then I finally saw one of the characters, and I was like, oh, this is that manga that I read. So I'll probably get back into the manga and, you know, get some more interesting backstory for the characters and stuff like that, because there was a lot that was kind of rushed through in the show, and we have characters like the one guy's son who came in, and he was in like 2 full episodes. He was in the first episode where he appeared, and then the second episode, when he was finally with his dad, he died in the same episode. So it was kind of like, you know, a couple of things were definitely rushed in this, you could tell. And like Chelsea, she was basically in like 3 episodes, which is still more than the other guy. But, you know, I don't know. Like I feel like I'll definitely check out the manga. There is, and I mentioned this before too, there is a prequel manga that talks about Akame and Kurame when they were growing up during their organization and everything. So I'll probably check that out as well. But it was definitely a fun anime. Definitely sad. Especially, actually another sad scene was when they showed Tatsumi's village. And they're like, oh man, they can all come back home and stuff. And I hadn't even considered the fact that he never even sent news that his friends died. But they didn't know that they were dead, and they didn't know that he was dead. And I was like, that's a really sad scene too. And they're like, you know, they'll be welcomed back as heroes. And it's just like, man, they're just gonna, you know, go on for years, and they'll be like, you know, maybe they just never came back, or they'll know, or, you know, kind of realize that they died. But that was another sad scene too, because they just had no idea. But definitely a great finale, definitely, you know, a bittersweet ending, because they did accomplish what they set out to do. They stopped, you know, the Emperor, even though he was unfortunately manipulated, because he's such a young kid. Like, that's what kind of sucked about the fact that they did do the beheading and everything. It's like, it really sucks that that had to happen to him, because he didn't, you know, he was being manipulated, so it wasn't really him that was making all these horrible decisions. He just didn't know that he was doing wrong, because he was such a young kid. And it's like, man, it really sucks to see that happen, because he just had no idea. So they accomplish everything they set out to do. They change the government. They kill the emperor. They kill the minister or chancellor or whatever. They kill Esdeath as well, and of course the Jaegers are disbanded. Wave is going off to do his own thing, and the other guy is like in another position as well, and they're going to help Najin to kind of rebuild the nation and stuff. So they certainly set out to do what they planned on doing, and it just, of course, along the way it was war, and that leads to some pretty serious and sad results. So it certainly did a good job as far as death and characters, but I do plan on reading the manga. It might not happen anytime soon, but I do plan on getting a chance to read the manga and learning a little bit more about these characters maybe, and getting to spend more time with them, because I certainly loved all the characters. Some of them, we had Bro, he died off, Bulat, he died off super early in the series, so I'd love to get more info out of his character, because we did get a bit of backstory, during his final couple episodes, but I'd like to spend more time with those characters, because some of them, died off pretty quick. He and, I believe his name was Shield, I'm pretty sure, hopefully. They both died off fairly early on in the series, so I'd like to get more time with them. But it was definitely a fun final episode. Definitely, of course, very sad, but I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, with this being the series finale, I actually want to know, what was the saddest death to you in the entire series? Because there were, of course, a lot. Basically, all of our main characters died. My theory that Susanoo may or may not come back as an evil character, that didn't end up happening, so he was officially gone. But there were a lot of characters that died. I think, despite how much I hated Leone's death, Lubbock's death was still like the saddest to me, because he was the one where it was like, I really thought that he could make it, and I felt like he should, because he was the one who had like the actual sort of love relationship, and he wanted to, be with Najinda. But it was also like he went through all that stuff and struggle, and he actually came out on top during that battle, and yet he still died in the end, and he falls through the sky, and it was a very good scene, and just the way that it played out, because he has time to think about everyone and stuff like that, and he's just falling, through the sky, and his Imperial Arms breaks. But that was probably the saddest one to me, because I thought he would make it. Like, that was one of those times where it was like everyone else, it was either, kind of out of nowhere, or you could tell, like, this probably isn't going to work, unfortunately. But for him, it was like he actually won the fight. He didn't get locked in this crazy alternate dimension, because he had the string around the guy's arm, and he pulled himself out, or he pulled him in, and then he beat him, and he, got released somewhere else. And I was like, he's actually going to do this. Like, he freaking did it, and then he ended up, coming out so high that he just couldn't survive. So that was the saddest one to me, because I was so sure he made it, and I think it was just because it crushed me, because everyone else, it was like, you could kind of tell what's about to happen, but for him, it was like, he did it, and then I just got instantly crushed, because he was so high up in the air, and then his Imperial Arms broke, because I was like, he could probably still make it, and then that broke, and I was like, I would love for Tatsumi to save him, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen. So that was my saddest death, but I want to know yours, and what you guys thought about, this finale in general. Do you guys think they're going to, at some point, possibly do a sequel? Because they did have Akame during that extra scene where she fights those random people. I don't know if they'd ever, because like I said, they did a prequel, but I don't know if they do a sequel series where they continue on. And there's still Imperial Arms. There could, of course, there's still going to be bad people. Akame was clearly fighting them, because they were just ganging up on this one person to try to kill her, and for whatever reason. So there's definitely stories left that could be told in the world, but I want to know if you guys think that that might happen sometime in the future, maybe after they finish the sequel, if that's not, or prequel, if that's not done already. But definitely want to know what you guys thought about this finale, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.